my friends. Thanks for joining me today. J.R. Dukes at your service. I just hit the buttons to go live. I appreciate everybody taking time to join me this evening. We're going to talk about a few subjects that I have picked out for us. Let me make sure everything is working the way it should be working, and we will get busy right away. So if you are new to the channel, welcome. I am J.R. Dukes. I am all about having a free mind, understanding the world that we live in. It's really just that simple. I'm here to stop the dreaded disease of indoctrination. That's my goal, and that's what I'm here to help each and every one of you out with. So thanks for joining us today for our conversation this evening. I just put in the chat. Go ahead and introduce yourself. If you're new to the channel especially, let us know your name and let us know where you are from. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you. I sincerely appreciate that. Over 7,200 subscribers now. I'm humbled by that and very much so appreciative of that number of subscribers. It is a blessing to have an opportunity to sit down and chat with each and every one of you. And as always, I don't take it for granted. So thanks again. I definitely appreciate each and every one of you. Everybody should be able to hear me just fine. I think everything's coming through the way it should. And I think we're ready to go. So lots going on today in the news, lots going on with President Trump and Trump world, and we're going to break it down right here today. I wanted to also put the link in. I do consider these discussions that we have to be what I call an open forum. If you would like, just simply click on that link that I just put in the chat. You can go ahead and call in a comment. If you have a comment, you can also go ahead and join me by video. Just click on that link. You'll pop magically up on my screen right here, and we welcome any type of comment, any type of question that you might have. Just obviously make sure it's constructive and in accordance with YouTube's policies. Blah, blah, blah. Pretty straightforward on that. So, all right. Looks like we're ready to begin. I want to say a quick welcome to everyone on the X platform. Thanks for joining us today. It is appreciated. And our friends on Twitch, and of course right here on YouTube. We're going to get started straight away. All right, let's take a look at this quick little thing here while everybody is coming into the channel here. And let's, I love talking about Adam Schiff. And we all know what President Donald Trump says about Adam Schiff, right? Well, he's got a couple colorful names for him. I just love to see Donald Trump, our president, take down Adam Schiff at every single term. And by the way, California, what is going on in California that they would bring in somebody and elect him from the House of Representatives to actually be the senator from the great state of California? I've visited California many times, and I love that particular state out there. But I got to tell you, man, this Adam Schiff guy, this guy definitely is challenged by the truth, to put it very bluntly. He's the one that lied continuously about everything to do with the Russia hoax. He was definitely one of the main pushers, if you will, of the so-called impeachments against President Donald Trump during his first term. I mean, it goes on and on. This guy seemingly cannot stop lying or trying to cause problems for, frankly, the country. I would say that he is definitely with every fiber of his body opposed to President Trump, and I just don't see any redeeming quality of this guy here. But here's a quick snippet of this happened just the other day, President Donald Trump taking down, we'll just call him Adam Schiff. I thought it was funny, so let's listen to that for a second.
And that's with all of the difficulties and all of the fake investigations and the Adam Shifty Schiffs. Can you believe this guy? He's got the smallest neck I've ever seen, and the biggest head. We call him watermelon head. I'd say, how could that big fat face stand on a neck that looked like this finger? How can it? It was the weirdest thing. It's a mystery. Nobody can understand it. But he's one of the most dishonest human beings I've ever seen. And you know how we can allow people like that to run in office is a shame, but
Amen.
We did. He was in charge of the witch hunt. You know, he was in charge of the fake witch hunt with Russia. It was a made-up story. Made up. Think of it. They make up a story. They know it's made up. It's gone on for a year and a half, 2 years. Russia. I knew nothing about it. The only thing I knew was that I taxed the pipeline that I told you about, that I put all sorts of sanctions and everything else. They never had a problem like they had with me. But it was Russia, constant, as a method of That was what they did. That was the complaint about why she lost an election, because crooked Hillary was expected to win the election, but they didn't see what we saw. We saw the biggest crowds in history gathering, only superseded by the crowds we just had. But here's a guy that goes out and he goes to an intelligence hearing or whatever you might call it, and it's supposed to be secret. He'd walk out, he'd either make a call off the record, this is crooked Adam Schiff, shifty Schiff. He's a shifty Adam. Or he'd just go out blatantly and have a news conference.
Frankly, I'm surprised this guy has not been indicted. Maybe he will be indicted. We'll see. I know that President Joe Biden, unfortunately, gave him a pardon for his participation in that so-called Blue Ribbon Committee for the January 6 hostages, which is definitely unfortunate at a minimum. But listen, this guy has lied so many times under oath. I would not be surprised if they're able to find a very clear case of perjury where he perjured himself. How many times have we seen him on television, especially during Donald Trump's first term, where he just come right out and just lie, just blatantly lie? I remember one particular occasion, this shifty Schiff, if you will, he just said, hey, listen, I have access to reports and to intelligence that basically the rest of the country doesn't have access to. And he was telling us, take my word for it, there is a lot of serious evidence against President Donald Trump. And of course, it was all just a lie. As President Trump would say, it's just Russia, Russia, Russia all over again. And I'd just like to see some accountability for that. This guy here is nothing but a big buffoon, but we're going to finish this up and listen to his comments.
And because it had to do with me and my family, he'd go out and have a news conference. And he said, you've got to remember, he knows it's a hoax because he made it up with crooked Hillary. So he knows it's a hoax, because we're dealing with human beings on the other side. He'd say, Donald Trump Jr., the son of the President of the United States, will spend many years in prison because of what he's done with Russia. Right. Now, think of that statement on a human basis. I have a young son, who is being told that he's going for prison on something he doesn't even know what they're talking about. He said, Dad, I don't know what's going on. They keep talking about I'm involved with Russia. I don't know anything about Russia. I swear to you, Dad. And yet Adam Schiff goes out and makes a statement about a hoax that he made up, that he knows is false. How bad a human being do you have to be? They put my son and my family through that kind of trauma. These are bad people. These are sick degenerates.
Absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, there is no love loss between President Donald Trump and this Adam Schiff. And I don't think the last chapter of this has been written. Here's some memes that I found online pertaining to Adam Schiff and watermelon head Adam Schiff. I just can't stand that individual. You even have Nick Sorter, Gunther Eagleman. Will Adam Schiff see jail time? We'll see. I don't really wish anybody to go to jail, but I will tell you this. In light of all this lawfare, all this nonsense, this destruction of our country that the Democrats, these woke Democrats, have perpetrated on our country, the way they went after Donald Trump. And listen, ladies and gentlemen, be under no illusion. Had President Trump not won re-election, not a doubt in my mind, he'd be serving in Rikers right now today. It's really just that simple and just that clear. I don't think anybody would necessarily disagree with that. Extremely unfortunate, but it is what it is right now with the woke Democratic Party. They don't know which end of them is up. They don't know what to do. You have people like the Michigan governor, Gretchen Wilson, kind of hiding her face when she was meeting with the president at the Oval Office. They're rudderless. They have no direction. They don't know what to do. And you have to hand it to President Trump. He is, you call it revenge, call it whatever you want. He's doing what needs to be done for the American people. And this lawfare that was perpetrated against him, and by extension, our country, has to be dealt with in the harshest manner possible. Accountability has to be brought to this nonsense. And I'm confident President Donald Trump is just a person to do that, but stay tuned and we'll see exactly how that works out. Now, the main story I want to talk to today, because I don't want to make this particular live stream too long, let's take a look at this is straight from the U.S. Supreme Court. This has to do with their ruling that was just handed down pertaining to that immigrant that they sent overseas. Let me go ahead and pull this up so that we can take a peek at it together. I want to go ahead and share this with everyone. Here we go. Share the screen. And boom. Now, this is directly from the website, U.S. Supreme Court, so that we know exactly what we are looking at. I'm going to go ahead and put myself up here in this corner so we can all take a look at this together. It's a short document, relatively speaking. It's not a very long document. It's only 4 pages, but I got some observations that I want to talk about here, and I want to let you frankly know what is the truth. And don't forget, if you have any comments or if you have any questions as we go through this, please go ahead and put them in the comments below. Appreciate. Looks like I have about 12 or 13 viewers on the X platform. Thank you all for being here today. Our friend on Twitch is here, and we have a few folks on YouTube as of right now. So let's go ahead and drill into this here. This, again, is the ruling that was just handed down by the U.S. Supreme Court just a few days ago. Title, Kristi Noem, Secretary Department of Homeland Security. This has to do with the immigrant that the Trump administration deported back to El Salvador. Remember, this guy is an El Salvadorian resident. And we keep hearing in the news, we frankly heard from the president today, he was meeting with the president of El Salvador. And you guys know I'm definitely a Trump supporter. My politics probably lean libertarian conservative, if you will. But we have to call a spade, so to speak. And I'm just not sure that we're getting all the information pertaining to this particular case here. And this case does have a lot of implications. They call it a constitutional crisis. That might be a little bit of a stretch, but it will be interesting to see how the Trump administration is going to maneuver through this and how far they're going to push this particular case. The original judge that was hearing this case, and frankly still is hearing the case because it's been remanded and sent back down to her courtroom, this district court judge. The Supreme Court definitely told her that, hey, listen, this has to be redone. It was basically revised, overturned and revised in part, and we're gonna dissect that right now. But this is a judge that is an Obama appointed judge. You know, these people love to shop around. They love to shop around for the right judge. They shouldn't allow that. I mean, they just should not allow this venue shopping, if you will. Basically, the Democrats, these woke Democrats, they want to find a judge that was appointed by Obama, or at least has some serious left-leaning tendencies. And this is the result that we get when this type of nonsense occurs. We also, ladies and gentlemen, cannot have it to where these district court judges, I think there's 260 some district court judges. You can't have a sole individual off in Hawaii, off in remote Alaska, whatever, that is able to overrule the president of the United States and his ability to govern. It just simply can't be allowed. And these type of district court judges, and again, this is a subject for another day, is not in the Constitution. These were created as an act of Congress. So my opinion is a lot of this is unconstitutional anyways. And the order that was issued by this judge, this district court judge, pertaining to this immigrant that was sent back to El Salvador. His last name is Garcia, and that's what I'm going to refer him to. I refer him as Mr. Garcia. This guy, let's just start going through this, and we'll dissect it on the as we go through it. And if you have any questions, again, just put it in the comments below. So here is the actual opinion. It's real short. We're going to fly through this. It says, on October 15, 2025, the United States removed Garcia from the United States to El Salvador, which he is currently detained at the Center for Terrorism Confinement. This is where they get that abbreviation, COCOT. If you have not seen this prison, I strongly encourage you to do a quick Google search, or even on YouTube, just go ahead and type in CCOT. I also did a video, I think it was last year, when Matt Gaetz gave this particular facility a tour. Very interesting prison. Now, what is going on in El Salvador would definitely not work here in the United States. It's so unconstitutional. I mean, it just reeks of being unconstitutional. It's just in the situation that El Salvador was in. I mean, listen, it was basically the murder capital of Central America. We're going to get into the statistics here if time allows, but it was really, really in bad shape. The gangs there ruled the entire country. And then once this president come to power, he was able to restore let's just call it a sense of normalcy. He was able to provide very good security for the people that live there. Now, critics will say that this particular president has went too far. That's the risk that you take when you have a particular authority like this that takes over. That is, it's not so much the gangs they have to fear. Now, critics will say you have to fear the government. But again, that's another story for another day. So let's start drilling down on this here, and we'll talk about it as we go through. The United States acknowledges that Garcia was subject to a withholding order forbidding his removal to El Salvador. Now, here's the thing. We're going to look at a video here in a second that was taken today of President Trump and Secretary of State and Secretary Noem basically telling us that this particular individual had two separate orders telling him he had to leave the country. I don't understand what the Trump administration is doing in relation to this particular case here. I don't know why they want to die on this hill, if you will, because the facts are not what they're telling us. And I know this because I've researched into this. I wanted to make sure it wasn't more of what I call the mainstream press lying to us or spinning something out of control. And again, that's what I'm all about, is giving you the facts to make your own decisions with. It's really just that simple. But this is an official document from the U.S. Supreme Court. They're stating the government has acknowledged that Garcia was subject to a withholding order forbidding his removal. So they had a judge that previously decided that he could not be returned to his home state of El Salvador because he was basically in fear for his life. He was, I believe the wording was, he was afraid of retaliation from the government. So again, not just the government, but I should say the gangs that they're still there. They're just more underground now. He did not want to go back. He's worried about being killed or harm coming to his family. The United States represents that the removal to El Salvador was the result of an administrative error. Again, that's kind of contrary to what we're hearing from the Trump administration right now. I'm not sure what they're thinking or what kind of advice they're getting on this, but I'm not too sure if this is the path they ought to go down. But it's important we still take a look at the order here. The United States alleges, however, that Garcia has been found to be a member of the gang MS-13, a designated foreign terrorist organization, and that his return to the United States would pose a threat to the public. Garcia responds that he is not a member of MS-13. He's been very consistent about that. To my knowledge, there is no proof that he is or was part of MS-13. They allege that he has tattoos that are related to MS-13, but I have not seen those tattoos anywhere that I've been checking. And trust me, I've been drilling pretty heavy on this, trying to find whatever information I can pertaining to this individual here. Okay, it goes on, and that he lived safely in the United States with his family for a decade and has never been charged with crime. This guy has no criminal record. And of course, you see pictures of him all over the internet with his American wife and his children. He's got 2 or 3 kids, and he has no known criminal record. I couldn't find any criminal record, and the Supreme Court is restating he's been here a decade, and he's never had any type of charges as far as a crime is concerned right here in the United States. On Friday, April 4th, the United States District Court for the District of Maryland entered an order directing the government, and this is the key wording here, okay, to facilitate and effectuate the return of Garcia to the United States by no later than 11:59 p.m. on Monday, April 7th. Now, the key words here is going to be this facilitate and effectuate. They mean 2 totally different things, and that's where the government won part of this and where they lost part of this. Or at least it was remanded to go back to the lower judge on the district court. On the morning of April 7th, the United States filed this application to vacate the district court's order. The Chief Justice entered in what they call an administrative stay and subsequently referred the application to the court. All right. It says the application is granted in part and denied in part subject to the direction of this order. Due to the administrative stay issued by the Chief Justice John Roberts, of course, U.S. Supreme Court, The deadline imposed by the district court has now passed. To that extent, the government's emergency application is effectively granted in part, and the deadline in the challenge or in the challenged order is no longer in effect. The rest of the district court's order remains in effect, but requires clarification on remand. In other words, when it's remanded, when it goes back to the original judge at the lower district court level. And this is pretty common, folks, for the U.S. Supreme Court. They do that very often. They really don't want to get involved with something like this, to be pretty blunt about it. And to the extent they get involved with it, they want it to go back to a lower court so they can basically do the hard work and make whatever discovery might be required, so that if and when it comes back up to the Supreme Court, they'll have more information. Basically, more of the work is done, and they can make a more of a direct and informed decision. It's probably the best way I can think of explaining it. The order properly requires the government to facilitate. Now, that word is okay with the court, facilitate, all right? So there's a lot of loosey-goosiness still to this particular order. So just keep that in your mind as we go through this, folks, right? Facilitate Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador, and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador. Again, he was under basically a protection order by a United States court saying this man is not to be sent back to El Salvador. We believe his fear of being hurt is real. Do not send him back there. That's just the facts, despite what the administration might be telling us today. The intended scope of the effectuate is the word. That's a different word than the facilitate word, okay? And the district court order is, however, unclear and may exceed the district court's authority. The Supreme Court is very uncomfortable with a word like this that is a much stronger word than the the first ruling on the facilitate. Basically, when you start talking about the effectuate, you're telling somebody, hey, you need to make this happen one way or the other. It's an entire different map here. It goes on. The district court should clarify its directive. It wants the judge, this female judge at the district court, the one that was appointed by former President Obama, to clarify its directive with due regard to the difference owed to the executive branch in the conduct of foreign affairs. That's basically saying the president is in charge of foreign affairs. That's just the way it's always been. And we simply do not allow random judges, even federal judges, to tell the president of the United States how to conduct foreign affairs. And that's what the Supreme Court is reaffirming right here. It goes on. For its part, the government should be prepared to share, and here's the key words, what it can, all right? Loosey-goosey language. This is how President Trump is going to be able to kind of take this little opening and make it even bigger, because they're not specifying exactly what they're going to require the administration to do, what it can concerning the steps it has taken and the prospect of further steps. The order herefore entered by the Chief Justice is vacated. In other words, it's over with, and this new order is what they want to see happen. Now, the liberals on the court, Sotomayor, Justice Kagan, and of course, Justice Jackson joined in. So this was a 9-0 opinion. It was unanimous. But they wanted to go ahead and say a few more things. And they're kind of telling us real quickly they're not very happy with this whole situation. And listen, folks, I got to tell you, I'm a little uncomfortable with it myself. We're going to get into it further as we go through this. The United States government arrested Garcia in Maryland and flew him to, quote, a terrorism confinement center in El Salvador, where he has been detained for 26 days and counting. To this day, the government has cited no basis in law for Garcia's warrantless arrest, his removal to El Salvador, or his confinement in a Salvadorian prison. Nor could it. The government remains bound by the Immigration Judge 2019 order expressly prohibiting Garcia's removal to El Salvador, because he faced a, quote, and this is a quote from the Supreme Court, clear probability of future persecution. There and demonstrated that El Salvador's authorities were and would not be able or willing to protect him. So what this is saying is solid evidence, if you will, despite what you hear on the news going back and forth. I hear all kinds of different things all day long on the news. Clearly, a judge has already looked at his particular case and has decided, as written here, there's a clear probability of future persecution. So he is legally here, despite what you heard the administration saying today. I don't know why the administration, the Trump administration, is doing this. Normally, they're spot on. And, I'm uncomfortable with this, to be quite frank about it. Matt, thanks for being here with me today, my friend. Appreciate your comments and being here. Media's gas. Yeah, they are, Matt. And I'm curious. It looks like the president and his surrogates are gaslighting this too. I don't know why he's doing this. I get it. He has the image of, I got to do something. I got to get this taken care of. I got to get the border back in order. I want to send the message that if you're in this country illegally, you need to leave. Otherwise, you may be sent to this horrible prison. I get all that, but the facts are not the facts that they're telling us. And I just don't think it's a good idea, but I'm curious what you think, Matt, and what anybody else that cares to comment thinks. Just let me know. I really want to hear what you think about this. It's something wrong. Something is wrong here. And I just think Donald Trump is getting bad advice on how to proceed with this right here. All right, it goes on. And remember, these are the liberals talking here on this particular thing. Instead of hastening to correct its egregious error, the government dismissed it as an oversight. The government now requests an order from this court permitting it to leave Garcia, husband and father, without a criminal record in a Salvadoran prison for no reason recognized by law. The only argument the government offers in support of this request, that the United States courts cannot grant relief once a deportee crosses the border, is plainly wrong. And this, again, is according to the liberals on the court here. The government's argument, moreover, implies that it could deport and incarcerate any person, including U.S. citizens, without legal consequence, so as long as it does it before the court can intervene. I don't know if I agree with that statement as written by the liberals, but that's what they said. Because every factor governing request for equitable relief manifestly weighs against the government, and they cite the case, I would have to decline to intervene in this litigation and deny this application in full. So in other words, the liberals are saying, hey, we've agreed to join this decision 9-0, but frankly, if we controlled the court, I wouldn't do nothing. I would allow the lower court lady, the district judge that originally came up with all this, to proceed. And fortunately for President Trump, he has a rather conservative court, and they really are giving him every consideration possible. If it was up to these liberals, they wouldn't even entertain granting any relief to the president at this particular stage. Nevertheless, I agree with the court's order that the proper remedy is to approve Garcia with all process to which he would have been entitled to had he not been unlawfully removed to El Salvador. This means the government must comply with its obligations to provide Garcia with, quote, due process of law, end quote, including notice to an opportunity to be heard in any future proceedings. Its obligations under the Convention Against Torture. And it goes on citing this here. And in other words, we want the United States government to follow the laws, to follow the treaties. Federal law governing detention and removal of immigrants continues, of course, to be binding as well. It requires a warrant before a non-citizen may be arrested and detained pending a decision. Now, President Trump would say that, hey, listen, this Alien Enemies Act allows me the ability to grab these people off the street and deport them, which it does. It's just the fact that they need to do it with other U.S. laws, which basically say that they have to have some type of due process. It doesn't have to be a real long due process type situation, but they need to have the opportunity to tell a judge, hey, the president, their administration got this wrong. For example, I'm not an illegal. I'm an American citizen. Judge, please let me prove that I'm an American citizen. Kind of makes sense to me. It's pretty straightforward. All right, and then the bottom line here, as they wound this up, basically, moreover, it has been the government's own well-established policy to facilitate aliens' return to the United States if the alien's presence is necessary for continued administrative removal proceedings. In cases where a non-citizen has been removed pending immigration proceedings. In the proceedings on remand, in other words, when it goes back to the lower district court judge, the district court should continue to ensure the government lives up to its obligations and follow the law. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is what I call a split the baby verdict in this particular situation here. The president is claiming that this is a victory, and I would say, listen, if you want to, split hairs about it, yeah, it's a victory for the president, but not a complete victory. He needs to tread carefully on this, Raider. So let me share the screen, then I'll take y'all's questions here and make sure we're all on the same page here. Okay, let me take a look and see what we got here. Okay, so Matt, let's see, is this guy an American citizen? Matt, he is not an American citizen. But I want to make this clear. He's not an American citizen, but he has the legal right to be here, despite what the administration is telling us, because a court, some judge, I don't know if it was an immigration judge or whatnot, but they reviewed his request for basically a political asylum, and they said, we find his request to be valid, and we don't want him to be harmed if he goes back to El Salvador. Therefore, the order states that he is not to be returned to El Salvador. Now, the Trump administration now claims that it was an administrative error. I think later tonight, just a few hours ago, they're trying to change the wording of this administrative error, but clearly some type of mistake has been made, because there is a court order saying he is not to go back to El Salvador. And just so I'm clear about this, everyone, I don't want illegals to be here in the country that are committing crimes. I mean, I think everybody pretty well agrees with that, except maybe some of the woke Democrats. If you're committing criminal acts and you are not of this country, from this country, a citizen of this country, they need to get rid of you. You should not have the privilege to be in our house when you cannot follow the rules. I think everybody would pretty well agree with that, again, except some of these crazy woke Democrats, right? I mean, there's some really crazy people way off in left field right now as far as politics and the world is concerned right now. But at the end of the day, if they commit a crime, they need to get them out of the country. But you need to have some type of due process. I'm very uncomfortable, whether it's a Republican administration or if it's a Democratic administration or whatever, that they can basically show up, arrest you, and just put you on an airplane and you're gone. When you get off the airplane, they're bending you over, shaving your head. The shaving the head wouldn't be a problem for me, obviously, but essentially you lose yourself, you lose your identity, and they're putting you in that prison. And listen, I understand the president of El Salvador, the large task he was trying to complete. He was trying to give his people freedom from all these gangs and all this lawlessness. But that prison, in my opinion, violates the Geneva Conventions. It violates a lot of treaties and just a lot of different rules, if you would, or just societal norms. For example, the isolation, a lot of the conditions there are inhumane. And it's not just El Salvador. United States, you all know I'm a patriot. You know I bleed red, white, and blue. I love our great country. Something I've talked about in this program before, some of the prisons that we have, in my opinion, again, are just a little over the top, to put it bluntly. For example, these prisons like these supermax, where people are kept and they don't have any type of human interaction. They don't see another human. They don't talk to another human. This is forbidden by the Geneva Conventions. It's just that simple. And I tell people, they're like, oh, well, being by yourself, that can't be torture. And I'm like, you don't think so? Go into your restroom, just turn on one light, no phones, no nothing, and see how long you can sit there with no entertainment, no one to talk to. And by the way, you can't go to sleep. You got to stay awake. I can assure you it's extremely difficult, and it is torturous. It's just that simple. All right, Julianne, thank you for being here as always. Appreciate all my regulars being here. And Rosemary Fair, thank you for being here, Rosemary. It's always a pleasure to have you in the chat as always. So thanks for everybody joining. I really do appreciate y'all. So I know that this is a little bit of a different take from what I normally talk about. I'm normally always 110% supporting Donald Trump and the administration, and I still do. You know, I love this man. I think he's got a special just a special blessing from God, if you will, to help our country get back on the right track. I firmly believe that with all my heart. On this particular issue, I don't know why they are lying about this issue. The facts that they're trying to say in the press is not the facts, and I have proof of that. We're going to listen to this clip of this video, and y'all see what I'm talking about. They're lying, and they need to stop it. They need to get the facts straight and tell the American people the actual facts. You don't want to lose credibility. I think people will support you even if you make a mistake. Just say, listen, I'm trying to help the country. I'm trying to save the country. I'm trying to get these bad guys out. I made a mistake. This Garcia guy, the best I can tell, again, no criminal record. He's married to an American wife. He's got 2 or 3 small children. His 5-year-old, I believe, has some type of intellectual disability. I'm not sure if he's autistic or he just has some kind of disability. From all accounts I can find, he works to support his family. He's a good family guy. I just cannot find anything to the contrary. I cannot find anything officially where he has admitted to being part of a gang or participating in a gang. And if anybody has any evidence contrary to that, please send it to me, text it to me. You know, my information is scrolling right below my avatar right here. You can reach out to me with a text. You can email it to me. I will be happy to do another show and recant everything that I'm telling you all right now. But again, the president is just wrong on this to the best I can tell. American Nana, thank you for being here, young ladies. Good to see you as always. Julianne says, I think prison should be so hard that nobody'd ever want to go back. I totally agree. I totally agree with you, Julianne. The only thing I'll tell you is that prison needs to be hard. There's no doubt about that, especially when you commit a very serious and egregious crime. The problem is that up to a point, you know, I don't think we should be in the business of torturing people. Now, I can think of people that we might want to make an exception for, but you have to remember one other thing. When people go to prison, it doesn't mean that they necessarily committed the crime. There are a lot of innocent people in prison, and I know I get a lot of comments when I start talking like this, but it's true. It's absolutely true. The United States has, I believe it's 2.3 to 3 million people incarcerated right now today. And let's just pretend 1%, now 1 in 100 convictions is a faulty conviction. That's a lot of convictions. I estimated one time when I did the math, 300,000 plus people at a minimum is incarcerated right now today that are actually innocent. We've talked about on this program several times people that were actually on death row. They got off death row, not because they died, but because they were, I wouldn't say a technicality, they were actually proven innocent because of projects like the DNA Project or the Innocence Project. Stuff like this has actually proved they could not have committed certain crimes. So we have a great system, ladies and gentlemen, but it is not perfect. This is one of the many reasons I'm always talking about how to deal with police and how to handle yourself in any type of legal proceeding, court proceeding, because there are people, probably more than we want to admit, that end up in, let's just say, on the wrong side of the law, if you will, and they end up incarcerated. It's just the way it goes. No system is perfect. So yeah, Julianne, I want the prisons to be tough. People commit a crime, they need to pay for their crime. At the same time, I don't want them to be inhumane. And you may agree with me on that, I'm sure. Yeah, she says, we have a club. Yeah, Club Med here, TV. Yeah, we do. And I would say, Julianne, that reasonable people could differ. I used to hear it referred to as Club Fed. I got it. I get it. And maybe some of the prisons are too light. But what I'm telling you is some of them are too cruel, even right here in the United States. We have prisons here that are like Supermax that I was kind of alluding to earlier. You don't ever see another human being. You don't see sunlight. It's underground. You go look at the prison, you can't see the prison. It's underground. It's just an open field. So again, having said this, if somebody has committed a crime, if they have done something against children, listen, I have no pity on any of them people. I'm just saying there has to be standards as a society that we make sure that we meet. You have to take into account some people are wrongfully convicted. And again, reasonable people can differ on that, but I'm sure all of us would agree that the Trump administration, their work is too important to allow the news cycle to continue spinning about this one case. Don't lie to us. Don't lie to the American people. If you made a mistake, we forgive you. Mr. President, we forgive you. If there's been a mistake, no problem. Undo it. Get the guy back here. You want him out of the country, that's fine. Go back to court and do it through the due process way, the correct way. Yeah, the J6 convictions, absolutely absurd. I think I posted one today on my X platform about a gentleman that's talking about his time as a what I call a J6 hostage. We're on the same page as far as that goes, Julianne. That this lawfare, just terrible, absolutely terrible. I got a lot more to talk about, Lord willing, in the days and weeks to come. I hope Donald Trump is actually able to, I don't want to call it retribution, but he has to take action to make sure that never again in the United States of America do we become a de facto banana republic. We need to make sure that no president ever again is in that situation and says, I'm going to engage in lawfare. They need to understand that you might be in power today, but when power changes hands, if you've done something wrong, if you've done something like this to our country, you're going to have to pay for your actions, and everybody that associated with them is going to have to pay at the same time. And frankly, I think we're on the road to that. I think you're going to see the likes of Fani Willis, Nathan Wade, and other bad actors. They're going to be held accountable for their actions. For example, we've talked about Fani Willis and Nathan Wade many times on this program right here. One of my favorite subjects I love to talk about. Being able, in my estimation, to prove some type of perjury between them two is a no-brainer. It should be very easy to prove that. And again, we'll wait and see. But Julianne, thank you for those comments. You're right on the spot. American Anna, prisons need to be self-sufficient again. Yeah, they were up in Massachusetts. They had a farm, everything from meat to vegetables, the chain gangs along the highway. It's on taxpayer. I don't necessarily disagree with any of that. It's same comments I was making to Julianne on that some prisoners' families have to pay for meals. Yeah. It's a lot of these prisons, they're trying to make these prisons, frankly, where they're not ran by the government. They're a for-profit prison. I don't know about you. That kind of puts a little chill up my spine when I think about it. Can you imagine what you're eating if you are unfortunate enough to be in a prison that is a for-profit prison? I can assure you, you're not going to be eating very well if you know what I'm saying. But yeah, it's amazing, Julianne. And American Annie, if not, plus they made, I think teaching prisoners a vocation, teaching them to make things, letting them make things, I think that's great. I think that's fantastic. Putting them in a cell and allowing them to essentially face this solitude, again, it is a form of torture. It's banned by the Geneva Conventions. It should not be allowed. Making license plates, making things, whatever. Hey, I'm all for that. I think work is great. I think the Bible even says that a man eats, he should work. It's just that simple. And listen, I love work. I think work allows a person to feel a sense of pride, a sense of godly accomplishment. It gives men and women alike a sense of purpose and belonging. So no problem with that at all. And you're right, Julianne, license plates all the way. Yes, Letitia James, absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up. I am definitely going to stay all over that case. If y'all are curious, you can check out my last live stream from a few days ago. I am definitely following that case, and we'll see how that works. As a side note, pretty well just about every person I can think of that really came after President Donald Trump hard. This is back in his first term, ended up with their own criminal problems. It's kind of interesting. I won't call it karma, but I meant karma is the right word. Basically, if you're doing bad things and you're acting out against others for the sake of just being a bad actor, it seems like you attract that type of negative whatever, and so be it. I'm glad that God works in that particular way. And I don't know about you guys, I wouldn't want to be on the opposite side of President Donald Trump. He seems like when he does something, he accomplishes something, and it seems like he is on his way to being a fantastic president. And I think that's what history is going to record pertaining to him. But we'll see. We'll see how it all works out. We got about 13 folks on the X platform. Thanks for being here, and our follower on Twitch, and of course we got about 6 or so folks on YouTube. Thank you all for being here. I really do appreciate y'all being here. Let's go ahead and take a look at this video, and let's just watch it. It's about a 2 or 3 minute clip. This is from today. He was meeting with the El Salvador president. I think his name is pronounced Bukele or something. Whatever. He speaks Spanish and he speaks English. He's a very intelligent president, in my opinion. He's the one that I did a video about last year, where in front of the United Nations, he gave the United States and all countries a friendly warning, if you will, about the perils of lawfare. And he emphasized how important the United States is to the entire world. And for us to be going down the path we were on at that time, he said, as a friend, I just want to caution you as to what you're doing, for the whole world looks up to each and every one of us, and amen that all worked out. But let's go ahead and take a look at this clip right here, and then we will talk about it in just a minute.
With him, we've known each other. I've known him since he was a very young man, as I said, very, very young. And I was impressed. I said, look how this guy is. In fact, you sort of look like a teenager. You look like a teenager. I said, what kind of a country is this? He grew up well in the last 5 years.
Do you support extension for nationals of El Salvador under?
I support him.
Do you plan to ask?
Go ahead. Let's hear the question from this very low-rated anchor at CP.
No, he's being
low-rated.
He's talking to CNN. I believe that's was that Caitlin? I forgot her name off the top of my head, but anyway, it's a CNN reporter. He's not very nice with her, which I don't blame him. I wouldn't be either.
Which one is that?
The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador.
Well, let me ask Pam. Would you answer that question?
Sure, President. First and foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. And in 2019, 2 courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country.
All right, I got to pause it right there, ladies and gentlemen. That is a lie. On this program, I try to tell you the good, the bad, the ugly. I try to just be as straightforward and as truthful. And I love Pam Bondi. I think she is phenomenal. She used to be the Attorney General right here in my home state of Florida. But I have looked very, very hard at all the documents and all the court cases. That is not true. There is nothing in the record where he says I belong to MS-13 or that supports any type of gang affiliation. And she's wrong about he's here illegally. That is not true. Originally, he was here illegally until he applied for asylum, and the asylum was granted back in 2019. I think when she talks about the 2 cases he lost, I think that I'll have to check further into it, but it had something to do with some unrelated issue pertaining to some type of bond or something else. But at any rate, I will want to get off on that tangent. He was, but specifically, this is a lie. He is here legally from 2019. A immigration judge said, I grant your request to be here. And the proof of that is in the U.S. Supreme Court reading, the filing that we just read. We just read it together. The U.S. Supreme Court said he's here legally. We just went over it. And if anybody wants me to go over that again, I'll be happy to do so. So I meant this is contrary to what the U.S. Supreme Court just said.
Right now, it was additional paperwork that needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs. If they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
So will you return him?
And you are doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank
Wait a minute. Could you just also respond to that question? Because, it's asked by CNN and they always ask it with a slant because they're totally slanted because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But Would you answer that question also?
Yes, gladly. So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So,
Okay, that is technically true. He was an illegal immigrant that came to America. That's true. He is a citizen of El Salvador. That's true.
it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As 2 immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared
That's not true, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. I wish it was. It's just not true.
MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation.
I just don't know where they're getting this. If you notice his words there was an order and he had to be retained or had returned under this this law the president's using. Well, technically that might be true. The president said that this guy is a foreign enemy agent or whatever, and under that 1797 law to return him. I mean, he's playing fast and loose with the facts here.
This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the president could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen.
That we just read the order together. We read it here on this program. That's not what the order said. We all read it together. He's being hyperbolic, and he's basically, I would say, this is a classic example of playing fast and loose with the facts. Again, I love these people. Why are they doing this?
Citizen of El Salvador, from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which is, I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world. And I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan
But
to
the
ask for
Supreme
it
Court's
after
asking
getting that?
to,
And
Is that-
what was the ruling
Is that your
in the
position?
Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0
Yes, it was a 9-0
in our favor?
in our favor against.
It's 9-0, but they're not. I mean, they're doing what CNN normally does. They're doing what MSNBC normally does. They're giving us half truths, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, the 9-0, yes, it was 9-0, but it's not as sweeping as they're trying to make it out. It's truly gaslighting. Well, one of y'all mentioned that earlier to me. It is the definition of gaslighting, if not outright lies.
Against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual at El Salvador's sole discretion was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time.
Well,
No version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it per the court can only be directed to him.
I asked.
¿Usted lo liberaría, Presidente Bukele?
Can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to not suggesting that I smuggle terrorists into the United States.
It's only
How could
CNN.
I don't know if you can hear that or not, but yes, that is the president of El Salvador. Like I said, I like this guy. He's a upstanding guy. I just am drawing an inference between the lines. I don't know if the president and him have a weak wink relationship going on, but this is the president of El Salvador. He runs the place like a dictator, and he's going to tell the press that, how can I send this guy back in all due conscience? How can I send a terrorist back to the United States? Friends don't do that. Friends don't let friends drive drunk, right? Friends don't send terrorists to their friends. I mean, this is the way this is going. And unfortunately, you know, this is a Trump administration BS. And I hate to say that, you know, like I love these people so much. I just think this is a terrible distraction, and I would move on.
Pero
How can I
liberar,
smuggle? How can I return him to the United States? Like, if I smuggle him into the United States, or whether I do it, of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle it?
I love this, by the way. I don't know if y'all can see it. And I look at Donald Trump's face. He's got that half grin on there. I love it. I mean, he knows it's a little mischievous, but he loves it.
Terrorist into the United States. I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
So you could release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. I mean, we're not.
So you heard it right there. He's like, hey, I don't have the power. I mean, come on. We all know better than this. Of course, he's got the power. He's got the power to return him to wherever he wants to return. I mean, this guy runs that country with an iron fist, which I think is good. So, I mean, again, don't misunderstand me. I love the Trump administration, but as I promise on this program, I will not allow indoctrination. I will not allow lies. I don't care who's saying the lies. I don't care if they're Democrats, Republicans, Independents. I just don't care. But these are lies. These are absolute, complete lies. The Supreme Court today, as I just said, this is right from the beginning of it, on March 15, 2025, the United States removed this guy. The United States acknowledges that Garcia was subject to a withholding order forbidding his removal to El Salvador. Boom. This is the U.S. Supreme Court. In their filing here, the United States government has already admitted that there's an order from a judge, the order's from a judge, saying you cannot remove this guy. Boom. That's the long and short of it. I just don't know why they're trying to continue to die on this hill, but it's unfortunate what they're doing. Ladies and gentlemen, I just have to bring you the news. I don't make the news. I just bring you the news here. Julianne, you're exactly right. Epic response. I can't bring a terrorist back here to the United States, right? It's kind of laughable, though, when you think about it, that he's, I don't have the power. I don't have the power to make a change. You're right. I can't just, we got laws in El Salvador. I just can't make anything happen. Okay. We know better. We know better than that. And Julianne, what's the lie? Well, he was born in El Salvador. And let me give you some quick facts on this guy right here, because he was born in El Salvador. There's no question about that. In 2019, Garcia was involved in a deportation order after being arrested in Maryland. An immigration judge initially denied him bond based on a confidential informant. You know how much I love confidential informants. A confidential informant's claim that he was an MS-13 member in New York, a state he's never even lived in. And because he was wearing a Chicago Bulls hat and a hoodie, which the government linked to gang affiliation, another judge upheld this bond denial. That's what it was. It was a bond denial that he was denied twice. And you have the administration twisting this, saying, no, he lost in court twice. They're playing fast and loose with the truth. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, they denied that bond at that time, finding the informant's claim insufficient for that purpose. But this wasn't the final determination of gang membership. It was about detention during proceedings, not deportation. That's what I was trying to explain earlier, that this was two denials to basically get out of jail while he's waiting on his case to be adjudicated in the court pertaining to immigration, asylum, or whatnot. Now, the withholding of removal granted. Later in 2019, Judge David M. Jones, after a full hearing, found, so this is an actual judge, gave a full hearing. He listened to Garcia's testimony, and he found that his testimony about gang threats in El Salvador to be credible, and he granted him what's called a withholding from removal order, a protection barring his deportation to El Salvador due to, quote, a clear probability of future persecution by gangs. The ruling directly contradicted any other deportation orders, as it legally protected him from being removed from our country. The government did not appeal this decision at that time. Additionally, Garcia has no criminal record in the U.S. or El Salvador. and no formal charges of gang activity were ever brought against him. This current judge, this district court judge, her name is Paula. I guess it's Xinis. We'll just call her Paula. Judge Paula, in 2025, this year, the hearings repeatedly noted a lack of evidence pertaining to any alleged ties to MS-13, calling the government's claim vague and there's nothing uncorroborated. She emphasized the allegations of his nature typically require an indictment of a criminal proceeding, and neither one of these happened to him. So when the White House is talking about these two quarters, because this is something I did research earlier today, it said the 2019 proceedings resulted in protection, not deportation. The government is conflating these two bond denials as effectively an order for removal, and they're not the same. So, Julianne, I hope that answers your question about what the lie is. And this is an individual that all public reports that I can find clearly show that he's a good family man. He's married to an American woman, born here in America. She's an American citizen, is the way I should say it, and he has an American family. Like many of you, when I first heard about this case, I have to confess, I thought, oh no, it's another one of these CNN, MSNBC hit jobs where they're taking the worst gang member you can possibly imagine, and they're trying to make him like he's Father of the Year, like he's sitting in the front pew of the church every Sunday. That's exactly what I thought was going on. I'm just being honest. That's what I thought. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not what I have found. And again, if anybody has any evidence to the contrary, please text it, email it to me, tell me right now in the chat as I'm going through these comments. I would love to hear about it. But I assure you, I have been drilling down on this for the better part of the day, trying to get to the bottom of exactly what the truth is. I've never, that I can remember. Of course, I don't know. Joe Biden really stretched credulity many, many times. This is such a blatant lie. I don't know what they're doing. And if you notice, the president is very careful. President Trump's very careful about not answering these questions directly. You notice how he's referring to his attorney general or to his White House chief or whatever that Stephen Murray's actual title is. He's careful not to answer this himself because he doesn't want to have clips in the future showing him effectively lying. I just don't know what the end game is, but I'm hopeful that he's going to reverse course. I hope that answers your question there, Julianne. And let's see, American Anna Matt Gates would have been better. Yeah, the tough talk is like listen to us. Yeah, tell me about it. I agree. He is a citizen of Aldover. Yes, he is, Julianne. Yes, Bondi is a lot of talk. She is getting it for not releasing. Yeah, I did not know she actually did not release that. She should release that. I hope they live up to their word and do that. Stephen Miller, that's his name. Thanks, American Dan. Stephen Miller is a savage. Yeah, I normally love this guy. He's great. He's definitely a pit bull. He's perfect at his job. But ladies and gentlemen, when the facts are wrong and you make a mistake, don't you agree? It's better to have a mea culpa. Hey, I messed up. Forgive me, please. Forgive me, nation, for I have made a mistake. I think everybody would forgive him. I would. I already have, but I just want the president to change course on this. I don't really see why that is such a big deal. Julianne, Biden's refugees were economic. Okay, I got you. Let's see. American Anna, I think she needs to spit out some indictments. I don't care about Epstein. I can be patient. I think it's coming. I think she's going to be very methodical, very careful. But I have no doubt in my mind that Judgment Day is coming. We just had Liberation Day with these tariffs. I have no doubt that Judgment Day, I guess others could call it Retribution Day. I don't care what you call it. That day is coming. The day of being held accountable is coming. I know from published reports, like with Nathan Wade, for example, they're having a hard time finding him. Apparently, he's on another cruise with Fannie Willis, cruising around. Because, and of course, I'm saying that as a joke. I don't know that for a fact. They are having a very difficult time issuing him subpoenas, to serve him with subpoenas to testify. They're doing they're doing what they should do to build a good case, a solid case that they can really hang on these individuals, these bad actors. It's coming. Just watch. It is definitely coming. So, American Anna, stay tuned. All right, Julianne, they arrested one guy for selling secrets to China. Someone we never, yeah, I heard something about that too. I thought he did have a lot of tattoos, but I'm going to tell you, if everybody with tattoos was arrested and deported, we'd be in trouble. I think y'all can see I got a couple tattoos on me right there. I'd hate to let that be the reason why I was sent to El Salvador. There's just something about the fact that a president of the United States can pick you up off the street and the next day you are pulled off a plane, bent over. They don't allow you to walk standing up. You're bent, hunched over. They bend you over the tarmac and they shave your head. Again, it wouldn't be a problem for me, but they shave your head and then you're put in a cage, packed in there like sardines. Again, if you're a bad hombre, you're a bad guy, you deserve it. I don't have a problem with it, but we're the United States of America. There should be some type of due process. I think y'all agree with that if you think about it. I'm not saying they walk free. I'm not saying they don't pay for their crimes. But this guy here, he's got a family. He's got a wife. He's got children. He's got a disabled son he's trying to take care of that's 5 years old. Either show me the proof or reverse this. Let this guy go free. Admit you made a mistake and let's move on. We got bigger fish to fry, Legion. We got so many problems. You don't want to keep fighting over something that you've lost. I mean, that's just my opinion. I say, well, April Fool's Day, Julian. Well, April Fool's Day would have been an epic day to arrest. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. You got Bob Martinez. I think he's serving prison time right now. And I'm sure there's going to be other politicians that are going to pay the price. And I wouldn't want to be Adam Schiff, if you know what I'm saying. I just have a feeling that they're checking our buddy out there. Yeah, if nothing else, I'm sure they could build a perjury case on him. Got about 14 viewers on the X platform. Thank y'all for being here. You guys can always follow me at JR Dukes on YouTube. Thank you to my friend over on Twitch and about 7 folks on YouTube. Y'all are great. I appreciate y'all being with me. I know that sometimes the medicine I have for you this day may not be necessarily what we want to hear. I know for the most part, we all love Donald Trump and we all support him. And I do too. I want to be really clear. I love President Trump and everything he's trying to do. And it's my goal here just to end the indoctrination, end the lies, make sure we see clearly the world that we live in. And listen, I don't care what side it is. If they're blowing smoke up us, we need to know about it and we need to call it out. And I'm sure each and every one of you feel the same way. I definitely do. And yeah, Elon Musk, God bless him, following that money. They're going to find out all this insider trading. I'm sure that they're all on the trail, but I strongly encourage President Trump to basically say, hey, what are the facts? Get the facts, get this nonsense off the front page, and let's move on to other things. His plate is full with Taiwan and China and with this war between Russia and Ukraine. The world's a dangerous place, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of things going on in the world. He can take his pick. He needs to focus his energies somewhere else. That's just my humble opinion. At any rate, it's time for me to bounce. Been about an hour. Appreciate y'all joining me today. May God bless each and every one of you until we have a chance to meet again. I always like to say, keep that mind free. Never give up. And until next time, I am J.R. Dukes.